And a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in this spotlight feature from the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. Great Lakes Honda City on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard. There for your new and used vehicle needs, all different shapes and sizes, a vast array of vehicles. And you can find out more by going to greatlakeshondacity.com. And of course, go there Monday through Saturday. Let them know the DT sent you over to 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. I am picture in picture in this spotlight feature with one of the best leaders that I've ever seen come through my hometown, and that is Herman Frazier, Syracuse University Senior Deputy Athletics Director. He's lived many lives, is what I'll say, and done a lot of different things here. And still, Herm, I got to give you credit because I met you over a decade ago, and the face still looks the same. So I don't know what type of treatment that you do or what you're doing for yourself, but the man stays young and has obviously had himself a really illustrious and incredible career. So with that being said, Herm, how are you?
Doing fine, Dan. And I think one of the secrets of staying young is working on a college campus and being around young people every day. I think the more you're around people who compete, it keeps you young and it keeps the energy levels up. So I think that's my secret.
Fair enough. And I can agree with that. Working with a lot of colleges and high schools and universities and whatnot, I can attest to the fact that it does, in fact, keep you very young. So, Herm, speaking of young, I want to go back to the beginning here because there's a lot of different pieces I want to get to today. But you going all the way back to Arizona, you were an All-American track sprinter at Arizona State University, had your college career at Denison University in Ohio, and you were an 8-time track All-American and captained the Sun Devils' 1977 National Championship team in a season in which you were the 400-meter NCAA champion. Bring me into winning a national championship at the collegiate level as a student athlete, because here you are at Syracuse University and you want to see these student athletes win no matter what the sport is, an NCAA championship. You've done it. Bring me back into those days.
Well, Dan, the thing about it is, and a lot of people did not know this, but when I went to the Olympic Games, I was only a junior in college. And so I came back for my senior year, and obviously I could have departed after the Olympic Games, but no, I stayed and I came back for my senior year because I knew that we had the ability to win a national championship at Arizona State. Because looking at the freshmen who were coming in, as well as the other members of the team that we already had, uh, we knew that we could be pretty good. And during that year, we broke numerous records, world records in the 4 by 2. We broke and set collegiate records in the 4 by 4. We set all sorts of records while in college, leading up to us capturing the national championship at Champaign, Illinois, at the University of Illinois back in 1977. I won the individual championship in the 400. We were second in the 4 by 1 relay. We were second in the 4 by 4 relay. We picked up really good points, considerable points in other events, and then we were national champions. And I have to tell you, winning that national championship for me and our institution felt just as much as winning the gold medal at the Olympic Games the previous year.
Well, and that's the thing is, you talked about that 1976, the Montreal Olympics, obviously up in Canada. You ran the first leg for the gold medal winning 4 by 4 relay for that 1976 Montreal Olympics. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, how many people have won an Olympic gold medal? How many people have won an Olympic gold medal before they won an NCAA championship? So that's pretty incredible.
Yes, yes.
And so for you, and when we look at that, you graduated from Arizona State in 1977 after winning the NCAA championship, and went on to athletic administration right away, a grad assistant for the Sun Devils track and field program, and also training for the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow. And then you got hired as the assistant director of events and facilities in 1979 by then athletic director for the Sun Devils, Dr. Fred Miller. So Arizona State for you, you're there, you go to the Olympics, you win a gold medal, you go win an NCAA championship, and then you graduate and you go right into athletic administration and you're still training for the Olympics. So, what was it like the second time around, 1980, in the Summer Olympics, intertwining yourself with Arizona State now in athletics as a professional while training for the Olympics in 1980?
First of all, let me say Dr. Fred Miller was before his time. He was a former lineman in the NFL. He actually played a little football for the Washington Redskins. And Fred, as we called him, had the tenacity to hire me when I was only 23 years old. So I transitioned right from a GA into the athletics department. And it was my first full-time job ever. And I had a $4 million budget and I had 8 full-time employees. So I really learned how to do the job. At the same time, he allowed me to train in the afternoons. I would get off of work at 3 o'clock, and then I would go out to the track and train from about 3 o'clock until 5:30. And then at 5:30, after taking a shower and whatever, I would go back into the office and finish working. And I was one of the top ranked sprinters in the world, still at that time in 1980. And many people had me positioned, hopefully, to win a gold medal in the 400 as well as the 4x4. But as we all know, we boycotted those games. President Jimmy Carter at the time made the decision that we weren't going to go. And we didn't go because the Russians had invaded Afghanistan. So therefore, politics were involved. And it was one of the many times down the road that politics would become involved in sports. And I was chosen as one of the athletes to go to the White House and meet with President Jimmy Carter. And he basically told us, you guys are wasting your time. We're not going to lift the sanctions against the Russians, and you guys are not going to go to the Olympics. Well, for Herman Frazier, that wasn't a problem because I already was started my professional career.
Yeah.
But many of my colleagues and other athletes who were on that team, some of them were at the end of their career, never had an opportunity to go to the games. But I had to be able to juggle training and at the same time making sure that I did not lose the ability to be effective in the position that was given to me at such an early age.
Yeah, and like you said, you were one of the people chosen to go for, training for that 1980 Summer Olympics to go and meet with President Jimmy Carter. What was that experience like not only to go to the White House to meet with the president, but to be at a time where, like you said, there was a boycott of the Olympics due to the issues that were going on? I mean, it would be anything to go to the White House and to meet any president, but to do it at that specific time and have that specific conversation, not many people can say that they were going into that type of situation. Herm, what was it like? Paint us the picture of that.
Well, it was fascinating for me because, believe it or not, I was actually going to school to become a lawyer. So therefore, my undergraduate degree is in political science. And when I was in graduate school, I was going to get a master's in public administration, run in the 80 Olympics, and then go to law school. But once Dr. Miller gave me an opportunity to have the job as an assistant athletic director, boom, out went the law school portion of it.
Yeah.
But the politics portion of it really helped propel my career as well, because after being in that environment, I then became a member of the Athletes Advisory Council of the United States Olympic Committee. I also served on the Athletes Advisory Council on USA Track and Field, but back then it was called TAC. And what I had committed myself to at that point was to make sure that what happened to us would not happen to any other athletes who came behind us in future years. And so that led to me being on the United States Olympic Committee for and Board of Directors for over 20 years, and having the opportunity to also serve 2 terms, which was 8 years, as a vice president of the USOC.
Yeah, and here's a message from Renee from Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York. Open Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and Sundays for brunch.
It's a lot like the way that my mom and dad ran their restaurant. We have put in place a lot of people that are family to us, very similar to how my dad hired people that were family to him. And then the tradition I'm carrying on is a lot of the items that are on our menu are my dad's. And he taught our chefs how to recreate his dishes. So I think that Tommy McInerney, who our executive chef is, to him it is an art. And I think that when he does create a dish, it's not just about making the food taste delicious, which is definitely our priority, but it's an art to him, and it's almost like his canvas on a plate where he just wants the colors to look great, and people love it because he takes pride in that. And Bryan and I appreciate that. We want it to obviously look good and taste good. I will tell you, when we opened up, it was 6 weeks before COVID. And what was amazing was the community, our friends and family stepped up, and everybody did takeout. Everybody supported us. Our hearts were just so filled. So to Bryan and I, obviously our friends come all the time, and we just have repeat customers in Jamesville, and I think people going to our previous restaurant in Green Lakes are making the trip to come to Bryan's Landing to support us. And I mean, I think we have great food and a great atmosphere. So it's very, very important to us.
Head to Bryan's Landing, located on 6523 East Seneca Turnpike in Jamesville, New York, where memories have become recipes that are now meals to share with you. Tuesdays and Wednesdays for dinner, Thursday through Saturday for lunch and dinner, and on Sundays for brunch. And be sure to come out for live music Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Here is a special message from Brian Bruno, owner of Servomation Refreshments Incorporated.
I grew up in the family business, had the experience of working for a national food service company with thousands of employees, and as much as I enjoyed the experience I had, there was something about, owning my own company and being able to change the things I saw wrong with the industry firsthand, which is why I moved back to my hometown in Canastota, New York, to launch Servomation. It was back in 2007. When we first started the business in 2007, really you didn't find any machines with credit card readers. There was a lack of variety in machines. You got stuck with basically whatever the vending company wanted to sell that day. There was a lot of inefficiencies in the business, and those were all things that we saw as opportunities, both from a customer level to improve and from an operating level to be more efficient. We've really been at the forefront of introducing retail technology into our space. We were doing self-checkout back in 2009 before it really became a national phenomenon. The whole point of it isn't to just improve the customer experience. It's to make it feel more like a retail environment where people don't have to be afraid of what they're buying behind glass. They don't have to be afraid of not being able to see the ingredients of the packages. It was an easy transaction from that standpoint. If we were to reinvent something, we wanted to make sure what we were making looked and felt more like a deli and not like something that you would traditionally see in a vending machine. I was tired of hearing for years the customers say the wheel of death because the vending machine would circle around with the same tuna salad in it. What we wanted to do was it really change the perception of that food. So allowing customers to touch it, allowing customers to feel the weight of it, allow customers to see the freshness of it, and also the variety of it really helps them change the perception and ultimately the value of what we bring to them. The point of differentiation you have to make is either in value or the quality. And I think on both of those fronts, Servomation has really, in large part, changed that value system for employees. So they no longer have to worry about bringing their food from home or having to leave their desk during the day and rush out to get back in time for their break to end. We're bringing something that they can count on in their break room every day, and they know it's going to be there, they know it's going to be fresh, and they don't have to worry about it being sold out or something that they don't enjoy. We've also heavily invested in flavored watermelon machine so you can get a glass of water with a fresh piece of fruit in it, along with bean to cup coffee machine. So there's not a day that goes by we're not surprised when we get customers that call us and say, we didn't know you could do all this. We're really lucky to have a strong group of dedicated employees. Most of our employees have been with us since inception. They're family to us, and people like doing business with people they like and trust. And I think the same thing goes for employees. In a day and an age where there's a lot of corporations that just look at an employee as a number and don't get to know them, that's just not the way I was raised or how I like to do business. So we're a little old-fashioned. We like getting close to our employees. We like knowing how we can help them. We like knowing how we can improve their lives, adjust their schedules, whatever it may be to help improve their quality of life. And we think in the end that makes for a happier employee. We're fortunate enough to have really grown over the last several years, and from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts to Connecticut, we really do have a strong connection, even though we're not in the rooms every day with these employees. There's not one single employee that we feel like we don't know, and certainly we know they can call us at any time, and they're definitely treated as family to us. I wake up every single day really excited to surprise our customers in a good way. The one thing I could tell you is I think that every one of our employees and every one of our customers will continue to be at the forefront of every decision we make.
Find out how Servomation can help you and your business by going to servomation.com.
We'll see.
Yeah, and for you, I mean, Herm, like you said, going through this process and making sure that this doesn't happen to any other Olympians again, we're living in a world right now where Russia has invaded someone. They've invaded Ukraine, and Putin has not played nice over the last few years here. And so now the question becomes, what's going to happen? I was just talking about the NHL recently here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City studios, and that the NHL is bringing back their World Cup. And they're trying to decide if Russia is going to be allowed to be a part of this because of what they're doing in Ukraine. So how surreal is it for you to be an Olympian and be training for the Olympics, and Russia's involved in something and it becomes political, and now here you are all these years later, still in leadership, still in athletics, saying, I don't want to see this happen to anybody, and here's Russia again with yet another political conflict?
Yeah, Dan, unfortunately, it's something that you just wish would never happen. But obviously, you're also worried about the safety of people in our country and other countries as well. And we could never put ourselves, or we should never put athletes in harm's way that they could be affected by something that happens. We talk about the Russians in '04. In the '04 Olympics was the closest games we had in the summer that were going to be held over in the Middle East. And at that time, I was actually chosen to be in charge of the U.S. delegation at those games. It's a formal title they call chef de mission. And that was the role I played. It's kind of like being a general manager for those people in the United States. It's kind of like being the general manager of the entire Olympic team. And so for those particular games, and I was going through all my security briefings took 2 days. And so we knew everything that we were supposed to know about where the Patriot missiles were. We knew everything that would go on as far as evacuating the U.S. team. And then we also had information on after we evacuated our team, who else would we try to assist in that particular regard, i.e. NBC, who was at the games that time, or other delegates or other people affiliated with the United States. I mean, it's a tremendous undertaking. And for someone who had competed to be able to peel that onion back and see all the other things that are involved. When we turn on the TV or when we turn on a computer or we're watching something streaming, we have no idea, the average person, of all the things behind the scenes in which the competition takes place.
Yeah, we fast forward and fast track to the competition most recently this past week. Chief of Jury of Appeals for the United States Indoor Championships, Ocean Breeze and Staten Island, and top two in each event go represent the United States in the World Championships later this year in China here in 2025. And so we're talking about China. China and Russia seem to be playing nice with each other. So now as you're going through this as the Chief of Jury of Appeals, are you are you now in a situation where you and a team gets briefed on 2025?
Well, in the particular role that I played this past weekend, it was involved with the selection of the team
Yeah.
that's going to go to China. And so what I'm there for is in my role as the chief of the jury, in case anybody gets disqualified or if there's an issue, then they have the ability to protest the results. And then they can take the protest if they don't decide on what the referee, um, if they don't want to go with the referee's decision, they can then protest and come to us for the appeal. Now, everything we see right now from a security standpoint of view
Yeah.
says that that team can go over to China, and we don't see any immediate threats at this particular time. And so we're going to send a full delegation for that competition.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely incredible, like you said, to peel back the onion and to see what is going on here behind the scenes of everything that we see. Going back to your role in events and facilities, and then going on to senior associate athletics director for business operations, and that was over 2 decades, a 23-year tenure at Arizona State. You got involved with the Fiesta Bowl, which obviously is played at Sun Devil Stadium, which is Arizona State's home. Its origin in 1971 through 2006, it was played at Sun Devil Stadium. So I have some history of my own. I'm very close with the Peach Bowl people that represent the Peach Bowl. Peach Bowl Inc., President and CEO Gary Stokin, and Director of Communications Matt Garvey, and their team there. Well, when I had Gary Stokin on the broadcast, he gave me something that I think a lot of people don't know. And Herm, maybe you do know this with your connection with the Fiesta Bowl for so long, but the Peach Bowl was involved with the creation of the Fiesta Bowl because Arizona State was in the Peach Bowl many years ago, won their first ever bowl game in the Peach Bowl, and then people were saying, well, we don't want to travel across the country to Atlanta. We should put something in Arizona. So the Peach Bowl, Arizona State has success there, win their first ever bowl game there in their history as a football program for the Sun Devils. And then the Peach Bowl helps to create the Fiesta Bowl, and now they're both in the college football playoff. So I would love to go into your history with the Fiesta Bowl and in your thought of the fact that how Arizona State goes to one bowl and that helps in the creation of them having a bowl right there in Sun Devil Stadium. And by the way, Arizona State went back to the Peach Bowl this year, and I got to watch them face off against Texas in a 2-overtime instant classic. So I know there's a lot of meat to that question, but this is a pretty incredible history for the Fiesta Bowl, its connection to the Peach Bowl, to the college football playoff now, and obviously your connection to it.
That's pretty good, Dan. That's a historical fact that a lot of people wouldn't know, and obviously, I wasn't prepared for you to go there with that question. But I will tell you this:
Yeah.
I believe that Peach Bowl was in 1969, and I believe it also snowed in that Peach Bowl. And Arizona State went in, and I think they were victorious.
Yeah, they won.
Okay, so then what happened, and again, this all predates me, but it's just a little bit of history that I've come to know.
Yeah.
So then what happened is Arizona State at the time was in the Western Athletic Conference, along with BYU, the University of Arizona, University of Utah, Wyoming, I think New Mexico, and maybe one or two other schools. And what was happening is whoever was the champion of the WAC had nowhere to go as a team. And so after the Peach Bowl, the founding fathers of the Fiesta Bowl, it was some local people in town, Don Myers, Bill Shover, a few other people who were involved in the electric company back there. It was also SRP. They all got together and they created the Fiesta Bowl because they wanted a place for Arizona and Arizona State to play. And Arizona State and BYU in the early years used to just really go at it. They really went at it. And Gary's correct. And so the first Fiesta Bowl was then established. Arizona State played in it. Arizona State eventually in the Fiesta Bowl would bring it in schools like Missouri, Florida State, Penn State used to come there. I actually in 1997 was the host when Syracuse came in there. So it was the beginning of a great bowl. And then the Fiesta Bowl back in I want to think 86, 87 season moved the game to January 2nd, and that was the year that Jimmy Johnson in Miami came in and had a wonderful game against Penn State and Joe Paterno, and Miami was upset by Penn State, and that's when Miami had Jerome Brown, Vinny Testaverde, Michael Irving, all those guys. So yeah, I mean, I wear that hat proudly, being associated with that particular bowl and all the people. And to be honest with you, that experience helps me whenever Syracuse is in a bowl because obviously I'm the coordinator for the athletics department and in all of our bowl participations and everything else that we do. But it's like another hat that you wear, and you also have an opportunity to just meet so many people. And at the end of the day, what I always say is a bowl game is a celebration for the success of your football team at the conclusion of a season. So yeah, there's a lot of history there, and you're probably one of the few people who can connect the dots to the story you just started.
Yeah, well, I blame Gary Stokan. And, you know, when you look at this, like you said, I mean, having all this history with the bowl, and you got to work with different executive directors there, John Reed, Bruce Skinner as well, and you travel across the country because back then, the Fiesta Bowl, you're trying to figure out who you're going to invite, right? It doesn't become a New Year's Six at that point, and so you're not told who's coming. The college football playoff obviously dictates that now. So when you were traveling across the country, and I do want to make note of the 1998-99 season where the Fiesta Bowl was the BCS National Championship game, the first ever. Tennessee top ranked, Florida I believe is 2 in the country. Tennessee wins 23-16 and keeps their undefeated season, 2 SEC schools. But when you went through and you were working at the Fiesta Bowl and you were traveling around the country meeting with head coaches and ADs and whatnot and trying to find the right fit, what was that experience like for you? And I would assume, Herm, with all the history that you've had and all the success that you've had, that you had a plan. You had some type of pillars of this is what we're looking for. And because obviously you want teams that are playing well, you want teams that are highly ranked, but at the same time, you want it to make sense and you want it to be something that is highly watched. You want it to be highly attended. Like you said, you've had teams coming from the Northeast like Penn State. So when you were going through your process traveling the country, what went into your selection process back before it was about the college football playoff?
The other thing too, Dan, that you have to take into consideration is at that time, the bowls also received the television money. So therefore, you always wanted to have a matchup that you know was going to get good TV ratings.
Yeah.
So for us, that always meant trying to get a very successful team on the East Coast. So therefore, Penn State, I want to think, came to the bowl at least 4 or 5 times during that era.
Yeah.
And they were also undefeated during the times they came there. We would also bring in Michigan, Ohio State. We would bring in Syracuse. We always wanted to bring in schools that we know from the East Coast that had good television ratings. And sometimes we matched them up with teams from the West. But the people who were always jealous of us somewhat was the Rose Bowl. Because at that time, the Rose Bowl was still the granddaddy of them all.
Yeah.
And the Rose Bowl was locked into the championship team from the Big Ten and the championship team from the Pac-10, Pac-12. And so whenever we could get the wild cards, and sometimes it may be the number 2 team in the Pac, or it may be the number 2 team in the Big Ten, but we were able to match them up with other high profile institutions, which sometimes made the Rose Bowl a little jealous because at that time we were also both on NBC, and our game would lead into the Rose Bowl game, which was always at a set time during the afternoon on January 1st. But the other thing that helped me personally more than anything else, I think at one time, probably between 1983 all the way up to about 2002, I probably knew personally every athletic director and every head football coach at major schools. So now what did that do for me later on? And it still helps. It means that once I left Arizona State, in my different capacities as athletic director or senior director of athletics or whatever, I could make a call whenever we're trying to hire somebody. And I didn't always need a headhunter firm or somebody to assist because I already had the entree to be able to get into the decision maker or whoever else was going on. And when you're trying to hire, and I'll remember this one when Arizona State, when we were trying to hire Bruce Snyder, and Bruce Snyder was the head coach at Cal, and the other person who we were looking at the time was Denny Green when he was the head coach at Stanford. And so when we called Bruce Snyder's office, even though I was working at Arizona State, the message I left with his administrative assistant at the time was, can you tell Bruce Snyder, Herman Frazier from the Fiesta Bowl is calling. I need to talk to him about something. And basically, all I was trying to do is get a return call to be able to talk to him about our head football coaching job. And I did the same thing with Denny Green's administrative assistant. Not a white lie, it was the truth.
Yeah.
I'm calling on behalf of the bowl, but obviously I'm representing my institution to be able to get an inroad to that particular coach for an interview.
Yeah, and you talk about networking and the connection to that, and I want to get to that a little bit later on here as we're talking with Herm Frazier. But you worked with the Pac-10 at the time, which became the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-2, which is going to be the Pac-something. And I told people, I said, I learned this from my mother. When I came home from school, my mom used to tell me, if you want to watch TV when you're doing your homework, you can either watch General Hospital with me or you can watch nothing. I want to thank my mother because watching a soap opera taught me that if you don't see something die or it dies off camera, it's not really dead. And even when you see it die, it may not be dead, which led me to the Pac-12. And when they said, oh, it's dead, it's gone, I said, do they still have a name? Yeah. Do they still have a logo? Yeah. Do you still see it? Well, then knowing what I know from General Hospital, it's not dead. And now the Pac is back. And apparently, if you end in state, you can be in the Pac. They're going after San Diego State and the Boise State and all these schools that end in state. But I'd love to get your thoughts, Herm, because you worked with the Pac-10, and I would imagine you never thought that a conference representing the Pacific Coast was going to almost go away completely. And now it's on its way back. And you talk about connections and networking. So what has been your time with the Pac and what your thoughts are in today's world of now seeing it reform itself?
Well, I will certainly be honest with you. I am devastated that the original Pac-10 / Pac-12 that I know no longer exists. There were some of the greatest athletes of all time who came out of those institutions. When you look at USC, UCLA, Stanford, Cal, on the Olympic level, first of all, if in many Olympiads, those institutions probably had more representation from their schools than some countries. That's how many people came from those institutions. You couple that with, I went back to Arizona State for an Olympic celebration, and even I didn't know Arizona State has had 179 Olympians. That's a big number. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
And so to see that go down and all the history of watching USC in the Coliseum and UCLA in the Rose Bowl, I'm still devastated about it and all the records and everything else that was set. Now, having said that, I felt really, really bad for Oregon State and Washington State to be left behind because those are two very good institutions as well. And now they seem to be carrying the flag for the rest of the league. But those schools who are now going into the pack are really schools that I used to compete with when I was in the WAC for the most part, because when I was a student athlete, I graduated in 77. We went into the Pac, we made it to Pac-10 on July 1st of 1979. So I never competed in the Pac, but as an administrator, I cut my teeth in that conference. And I learned so much, Dan, just by being in the room when you had council meetings and you're in the room with the president or CEO or whatever from UCLA, from SC, from Washington, from Stanford. Stanford president at the time was a guy by the name of Don Kennedy. My God, he was one of the smartest guys I ever known. UCLA had a guy by the name of Chuck Young in the room. He was the president. Washington had a gentleman by the name of Bill Gerberding. He was in the room. I mean, I can just tell you these without notes because I just learned so much about administration, about myself, about higher education, just being around those people over the years. And so there was so much history there that I'll never forget. But as I look at what's coming up, I feel good for those institutions to have somewhere to compete, but I will never forget the old Pac-10, Pac-12.
And now, in these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
All right, you need to come out here and get yourself the Brooklyn Pickle. I was talking about this with one of my buddies. I was like, yo, there's no better sandwich in the state of New York than the Brooklyn Pickle. And now that I found out that they're going down to North Carolina, we are taking over your taste buds everywhere you are, wherever you're going to be. You need to get yourself out to the Brooklyn Pickle. Pinehurst, you just realized that you found yourself the best sandwich shop that you're ever going to have. This is a glorious moment. It's a blessing to your community. You're welcome. Brooklyn in the house, baby. Go over to the Brooklyn Pickle. You already know what it is.
You heard the man. Head to Brooklyn Pickle Pinehurst on 1788 Old Morgantown Road in Southern Pines, North Carolina. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there, and of course you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100, and also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
At 12.
And now, in this weird world that we live in, and you and I both know this very well, I've been broadcasting for 21 years. My company is 12 years old, about to turn 13 years old. So I know this, you know this. They say the world can be small. The sports world is very, very tiny. And now here you are at Syracuse of many years, and Stanford and Cal of the old pack are now in the Atlantic Coast Conference, even though they're on the Pacific Coast. So, you know, you talk about the stories of Stanford and Cal, and I've gotten to know some people there. I've gotten to know the head football coaches at both, and know some people within both of these schools. And I just, to me, it's strange to think Syracuse to Cal, Syracuse to Stanford, 2,300, 2,400 miles. If you were to drive this thing, it would take you over a day if you didn't stop. So what's your take on that now? You say, you know, you were devastated, you missed the old pack, and now two of those pieces are in the ACC where Syracuse is.
Well, the thing is, I hadn't been to Stanford and Cal in a while. And this year, the way our schedules worked out, I actually was the administrator who went out with both men's and women's basketball programs. Okay. It was probably good that I went as well because, again, I know the landscape out there. I know a lot of the people. There's still some coaches on the staffs there that I've known. And those who I didn't know when I was there before, I've seen them through the affiliation of the Olympics. For instance, when we were there for women's basketball at Stanford, Tara Vanderveer came down and gave me a hug. And for those people on your show. Tara Vanderveer, longtime coach at Stanford in women's basketball, won national champions, also was the coach of the U.S. Olympic team in 1996 and actually coached Dawn Staley and a lot of those young ladies who were on that team. So I still know people back there, and I think it's good for them that they are in a conference like the ACC and didn't have to get into something that was somewhat, excuse my language, watered down with what's coming up with the current pack, whatever it's going to be. But again, that's just the nature of what's going on in collegiate sports right now.
Yeah, and I do obviously want to get to Syracuse and all your roles there, but I wanted to respect your history. UAB, which I have a connection to in many years, Hawaii, which I have some connection to with Ken Niumatalolo and his time there, and I met him obviously when he went to Navy and coached the midshipmen. So you've had this history beyond Arizona State. I'd love to get into how you cross paths with Dr. Daryl Gross, because he brought you in, he brought in Floyd Little, and then you guys became, the best of friends. And for me, going to any event when Floyd was alive, and now obviously with you, we continue this, but I would always look for you and Floyd. And I don't know if you guys know this, but in any post-game press conference, when it came to football, I would always look for you, look for Floyd, shake your hands, say hello, wanted to know where you were in the room, because I have tremendous respect for you because you've always treated me well. You've always given me an open door policy. And like you said, you don't have to cut through the red tape of dealing with certain things. You've never made me have to cut through the red tape of call this middle person or that middle person to go there. You just say, hey, Dan, text me. We'll set it up. So you've always been that way. Floyd has always been that way. And I know up in heaven right now, he's having some fun, cracking some jokes with God. So I'd love to get your journey of how Syracuse came about, because we talked about Arizona State, but there's UAB, there's Hawaii, there's the Yellow Jacket Committee. There's all these different things that you've done to get to where you are today.
Sure. So Dr. Gross and I spent numerous hours and days competing against each other when he was at USC and I was at Arizona State. And USC is very, very competitive in all of its sports. Arizona State, we were very, very competitive in all of our sports. And both institutions not only made sure our football and basketball programs were good, but we also wanted to make sure all of our programs were good. Yeah. There was golf, there was swimming. And so he knew that we were like-minded. Yeah. And if I can, I'll show you one of them. I'll discuss one of them where at one point we had Phil Mickelson on our golf team. And even when Tiger was and everybody knew he was going to Stanford, I still wanted Tiger out of his recruiting visits to make sure he took one visit to Arizona State, which he did. Yeah. But obviously he was going to Stanford. But when Phil Mickelson was there, Phil Mickelson actually won a PGA tournament in Tucson. It was the Tucson Conquistador tournament when he was in college, believe it or not. And obviously he didn't take the money because he was in college. And our coach at the time was Steve Loy. And once Phil was there, we won national championship Phil's senior year in the sport of men's golf. And by the way, during that time, we also won 5 to 6 national championships in women's golf. And we were going head to head all the time against USC, UCLA, and all those schools. And Gross and I would laugh at each other, but we're trying to get a heads up on one another. So lo and behold, Steve Loy leaves to become Phil Mickelson's agent. So that left a void for me for a men's golf coach. So I called Gross and I said, hey, I think I want to talk to Randy Line. And Randy Line was the golf coach at USC. So Gross says, oh, he says, you think you're going to win with line? And I said, absolutely. I said, plus he can come over here and have more fun with me than he would with you. And we both kind of kid each other. Long story short, Randy Line came to us and in a few short years won a national championship. Okay. And so obviously Daryl kind of laughed at me, but we kept in touch with each other. And then Daryl obviously was hired here at Syracuse. By that time, I was at Temple University and I was working, and many of your people know Temple was in the Big East, and then they kind of got thrown out.
Yeah.
So again, when I was in Temple, I had I was told to try to work my contacts to see if I can get Temple back into the Big East. And there's when I called Dr. Gross and I said to him, hey, I need to talk. I need you to be my conduit to kind of help me behind the scenes to see what, because we knew everything was starting to evolve in collegiate athletics, even before all the things that are happening now. And I said, hey, I need to talk to you and see if you and I could come up with a plan on how I can get Temple into the Big East. And I'm going to need your help because at that point, Syracuse was still in the Big East. And we met a couple times. And then we met one time. It was in February of 2011, I believe it was. And Syracuse was playing Villanova in Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo. And Daryl told me to come over and meet with him. So we met, and there was an alumni function going on. And he wanted me to go to the game with him after. And I said, no, I'm not going to go to the game because people will see me sitting in the stands with you, and I don't need that to happen. And so we kept talking. So then finally one day, Daryl says to me, he says, hey, I'm not helping you at Temple. He says, I need some help. And he says, would you consider coming to Syracuse? And that's how I ended up coming to Syracuse. Him and I talked, and he convinced me to come here to be able to do some things in the athletics department based on my previous experiences other places. He talked to me about Floyd. He talked to me about the team he was trying to build. I had never met Floyd at that time, but when I first got here, Floyd was out doing some Hall of Fame duties and what have you. But then once he came on campus and his office was next to mine, we just started the laughter and the friendship. And it ended up with us probably being two of the best friends that each other had ever had.
Yeah. And I know I showed you one of these things, but I have in my studio, I have a bunch of different things here. And one of them, and they both came the day that I went into his office, I think for the first time, but his promises to keep, because we know that Floyd loves, miles to go before I sleep and promises to keep. And so he took this out of his desk. He took it out of the drawer. He had two in there. He signed it and gave that to me. So that's stayed in the studio. And then I had this really awesome Denver Broncos hat where you got the logo here and then you got it on the mesh, which you never see. And I had him sign it. And so I can keep that forever. So I have that Broncos hat. And then I know I showed you very recently that I've never had a Floyd rookie card, and this is an authenticated rookie card that he signed that was encapsulated by Beckett, and I got it from my friend John Newman. So I have plenty of Floyd Little. It sits right to my right, and it's a constant to me. Like I tell people, he's with me here in the studio. He's with me in everything that I do, and I take very seriously miles to go before I sleep and promises to keep. So before we jump into Syracuse in the here and now, I want to stay with Floyd for a second. You said we became the best of friends. You didn't know him. You met him through Dr. Daryl Gross. You had your office right next to each other, and you just started talking. What is it about Floyd that resonates with you today? When you're walking down the hall, when you're on a plane, when you're going to an event, when you land somewhere, when you're just sitting there having lunch, what are some of those things that just hit you and you're like, I know he's here still?
Well, first of all, he was such a genuine person,
Yeah.
and people just loved Floyd. He had a great laughter. He had a wonderful smile, and he was just the salt of the earth. He would do anything for anybody. I saw him. He would bring student athletes in who were having a hard time, or he would bring other staff members in and just sit down and talk to them who were having a hard time with something. And I've never seen Floyd Little down, never. And because of all the success he had uh, within the NFL and also in life, I mean, Floyd also went to law school. A lot of people didn't know that. Floyd went to law school. Floyd was owned a car dealership. I mean, Floyd was a complete picture, and he was a wonderful husband. He was a great father to his children. He was great to all of his grandchildren, and he just loved everybody. And I'm like you. I sometimes I sit down and I'll see pictures of the two of us, or somebody will send me a picture of the two of us that they've had and what have you. I just miss the guy all the time. He will forever.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge, and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. He kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
All the time. He will forever be a part of my life.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And I tell people that I said it didn't matter what day I was having or not having. I said that man would turn around, always dressed in a suit, always looked like he could hit someone and knock the wind out of them at any age. and he would turn around and he'd look at me and he would make me feel like the only person in the room. And it didn't matter what event, where we were, what was going on. He'd turn around, he'd see me, big smile would come on his face, and he would go, there's Dan. He's like, look, Dan, there he is. And he would give me a big old hug. And I do. I mean, I tell you this, Herm, when I come into football press conferences, and I'm going to try and not get choked up, I will walk into a press conference and I still look for him. I still hope to come around the corner and see him. And because I know that you do this, and you did this past season, is you come up to Isaac Elford and I, and you've always been great to me, great to Isaac, you're great to people. And you put your hands on my shoulders and you're like, I was behind you when you asked that question. And to me, it was like whenever you guys sat, we were usually on the same side, and Floyd was there and you were there sitting in the back and I was over there. And I know that Floyd will always be on my side. I've always felt that you have been, and I appreciate it. And it means more to me than you know. And I think in honor of Floyd, you and I owe each other a lunch somewhere in the not too distant future here, because he's one of my closest friends. I consider him one of my best friends, and I know that he was a best friend to you. And the conversations that we had off the air, I tell people, if you liked anything on the air, off the air, that man has no idea. When I started my business at 26 years old, I talked to my mom, I talked to my dad, I talked to my grandma on my mom's side, G Mama, and I talked to Floyd. That's who I spoke with. And I was literally at a crossroads, stressed out, upset. I was treated very poorly by the radio station I was at, and I was at my wit's end. And I looked at Floyd, and I will never forget. He was on the phone, and I was in his office, and I don't even remember if he like hung up the phone or he just put the phone down, Herm, but he looked right at me and he could tell that I was distressed. And he looked at me and he said, Dan, did that soft and then got loud. He said, Dan, he said, you got that aura. See, some people got it, some people don't. He said, but when I look at you, he said, you got that energy. You're going to be all right. He said, you're going to be okay. He said, I can see it. You're going to be successful. And he doesn't, well, he knows now, but I remember being in his office, and after I had that conversation with him, it was one of the things that pushed me over the hump to start my business at 26 with 27 cents in my pocket, $103 in my bank account, no idea how to start a business, and I was living with my grandmother, with G Mama, so that she didn't have to be in a nursing home. I was her main aide. I started my company in that situation off of conversations like that one, and he was one of the final nails in that to make it happen, and I can never thank him enough for that. Like, I literally am shaking talking about it right now, but I can't say enough about it. So, I mean, I'm sure you have a million stories of that with him, but man, when that man spoke, I used to tell him all the time, I said, I want to just sit on a porch with you in rocking chairs and talk about literally anything for the rest of my life, because he was just that type of guy.
Interesting. I had an opportunity to do that one day at Gross's house, and Jim Brown came to town. And Jim Brown, Doug Marone, and myself sat outside Gross's backyard for about an hour and a half, just talking to Jim Brown about all sorts of things. And so Syracuse historically has had some great athletes come through here on the men's and the women's side, and they're just wonderful people. And Dan, a lot of them, just like you would have thought that I went to school here, because a lot of their top athletes, when they come back, they treat me like I was a letter winner here at Syracuse. And I'm talking about the Donovan McNabbs, the McPhersons, everybody that you see, even on the basketball, the Derek Colemans, the Dennis Duvals, all those guys. I mean, they've really treated me well.
Well, and I can see why. I've known you for over a decade. Went by fast. Here with Herman Frazier. Herm, before I let you go, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios, to fast track to now, you've had some decisions over time, right? You were deciding on a football coach when you brought in Dino Babers, deciding when Fran Brown comes in. I'd love to get your thoughts of to give us a little behind the scenes of looking for it. Do you still call up people and say, "Hey, this is Herm from the Fiesta Bowl. I want to talk to Fran Brown." So I want to know what you use now. Give me a little behind the scenes of finding the right coach, and then I'd love to get your thoughts on Fran Brown, who I have built a very quick relationship with. Man stopped a press conference to congratulate me on 21 years of broadcasting, and it was live, and I had no idea he was going to do that. So we got to talk afterward on that. But I'd love to get your take behind the scenes of finding the right coach, and then why Fran just fits.
Well, first of all, I'm one of a few people who are in the room when these conversations take place with the coaches. I'm not the only one in the room. Lot goes to our chancellor, Kent Severud, and our athletic director, John Walhack. As it relates to Babers, at that point, we had a different athletic director, and we were looking for a different type of coach after, unfortunately, Coach Schaefer had departed. Babers came in, did what he had to do, and, had some success early. And then towards the end, things kind of dropped off a little bit. So, the institution, Syracuse as an institution, makes the decision when you're going to make changes. And so, again, now it falls on John Walhack and his lieutenants and the chancellor. And we had a really good list of potential candidates. And we actually met with a lot of people. But when it got down to the finalists, we met with all the finalists in one day, to be honest with you. We kind of flew around the place and we met with them. The way they paid homage to me is by being the oldest guy in the room, I get to ask the first question. So with all the candidates that we decided to have conversations with, I was the person who got to ask the first question. I personally did not know Fran Brown, but I will tell you, when we sat down with him, his preparation, his knowledge of the game, his understanding of student athletes was by far leap years ahead of some of the other people. Obviously, he had not been a head coach, he had not been a coordinator, but he understood, and you could tell he understood the total picture of handling the program. And so once I started doing some homework on him and looked at his background and everything else, and him coming from Camden, to be honest, is somewhat similar to my own background coming from North Philadelphia area. And Camden's just over the Ben Franklin Bridge from downtown Philly. And so at that point, knowing what I had to do to get where I am today, to be able to talk to you on this radio show, I know what Fran also had to go through to get where he is today, to be the head football coach at a prestigious school like Syracuse University. So therefore, yes, Fran is he's done a great job in year one. We want him to continue to be able to be successful. So, we've got to surround him with the tools to be successful. I think the community has bought into Fran and everything else that his staff is doing. And Syracuse trajectory right now, as it pertains to football, seems to be on the way up.
Can I ask what you asked him?
I don't remember now. I can probably go to my file, and I keep my files, but I don't remember at this point.
So You talk about giving him his resources and in general, Syracuse having resources. How important is it for Syracuse University to create its NIL, to create that name, image, and likeness space? We know that it's not going anywhere. Right now, there's not a ton of parameters. It seems like there's a lot of things going on with tampering and the portal and all of that. So the NCAA is still trying to figure it out. But what can you say about the initiatives? I know there was something that just came out recently, John Wildhack speaking on what the school is looking at going forward, but just what you can say to providing resources in today's collegiate climate, which is obviously vastly different than when you were a student athlete.
Oh, it's tremendously different since I was a student athlete, and obviously everybody's reacting to what they call the House settlement. And what the House settlement does is gives institutions the ability up to $20.5 million to be able to share. It's called a revenue share with your student athletes. And I think what you heard from John Wildhack and Syracuse University that was announced last week, that Syracuse University will participate. And Syracuse University has just engaged into a campaign that's going to raise money to provide the resources and the money that our teams need for their NIL. And we're all systems go, and we're moving forward to be successful like everybody else, and we will be competitive.
Yeah, and I know that's something that is important for people to hear. I know, too, when we talk about finding the right coach, you have been a part, like you said, of a room of not just you, but it is a group of people that are making these decisions. When Floyd was there, Floyd was a part of that room as well. So with Adrian Autry, he's the associate head coach, right? He's the next in command. As he told me, because I've known him and we've had a friendship of over a decade, he told me before, I said, what does associate head coach mean? He said, that means if Jim Boeheim is sick, if he gets kicked out of a game, I hold the clipboard. So he was the associate head coach. He was given the opportunity to be a head coach. Bring me into that room on saying, okay, did you look outside at all? Was it a conversation with John Wildhack, Kent Severud, like we're going to see what's out there? Or no, we're not even going to do that. We're going to have a succession plan. It's going to go from Boeheim to somebody who worked under Boeheim. We're going to see what Adrian can do and go from here, because that's something that I would like to know, and I know a lot of people would like to know, is was there an outside look, or was it simply we're going to look to who we have? Adrian's the next in command. He deserves a shot. Just what you can say to that.
Well, Adrian sat on the bench for many years, but I believe Adrian came in the same time I did in 2011. And he sat on the bench with Coach. He learned a lot from Coach. Syracuse has been fortunate that, Boeheim has mentored so many different individuals and former players who are now coaches of teams on the collegiate level. And I believe that Adrian, based upon his experience and his time, and having the opportunity to learn for so many years under Coach, the succession plan was put in place. There was a previous one for Hopkins.
Yeah.
And Hopkins was going to be able to move into the position, but, Mike decided it was in the best interest for him and his family for him to take the University of Washington job. So after Hop left, Adrian obviously moved up and was the number one associate on the bench. And after Coach left and departed, and by the way, Coach is still here. I see him all the time. He's just a great person for me to be around and talk to. And so, yeah, the decision was made that Adrian was going to move into the slot.
And for you now, how do you look at that runway for Adrian? How much time is given in a space after a coach has coached a program for over 4 decades?
Clarify the question. I wasn't sure. What do you mean?
Just
in space.
When we look at a school that was so unique and having Jim Boeheim for 47 years as a head coach, how much of a runway do you give to that next coach? Because fans want to have that history. They want to win right away. So whether it was Jerry or Adrian or somebody from the outside, how much time do you give to a coach after something like that? Because whoever was going to step into this role, I think a lot of people are very critical of Adrian, but I think they would have been critical of anybody, Herm, because you're stepping into a place of a Hall of Famer who was almost a 5-decade coach at Syracuse.
Well, a couple things. Whenever Adrian has his own personality, and he is not Coach Boeheim, he's not Mike Hopkins, he's not Jerry. And so the program is now Adrian's program. So you got to let Adrian have time to be able to put his stamp on the program and move forward. I believe Coach Boeheim will tell you at one point, once he first got in there, people were screaming and hollering about his success level early. You don't put a coach into a position and talk about a runway. You put a coach in a position and you just take off, and you put all systems go and you try to win games.
And I do.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, coming to you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, is your one-stop sports card and trading card shop. If you've collected before, it is the perfect place to continue your collection. And if you're just starting out, it is the place that is good for any beginner coming into the world of sports and trading cards, thanks to the awesome staff, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the care that goes into everything that starts with Josh and Anthony and trickles throughout the entire team at GG Cards and Breaks, 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 6, and on Sundays from 10 to 5. Head in there today. Let them know that DT sent you for hockey, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, Disney Lorcana, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, while supplies last, with single cards, graded cards, autograph cards, numbered cards, RPAs, which stands for Rookie Patch Auto, as well as packs and boxes to buy to try your luck and see what you can get to bring home today into your collection and to find something great for someone you care about at GG Cards and Breaks, 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. The Lemoyne College Dolphins are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Dolphins every single Wednesday during Dolphin Time, weekly on Wake Up Call, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, worldwide, with student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni joining Wake Up Call throughout the years to tell their stories and their connection to the greater Finn family. You can find all of our content with Lemoyne by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Lemoyne playlist. You can also find the Dolphins on WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com and fins up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bobcats in what we call the Bobcat Buzz every single month, centering on their awesome sports programs, their student athletes, their coaches, their administration, a lot of wonderful things going on at Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse on 2 campuses, one right outside of the city of Syracuse, New York. If you go up the hill on James Street, as well as right there across from Avicoli's off of Route 57 in Liverpool. You can find all of our content with the Bobcats by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find the BSC Syracuse playlist. You also find the Bobcats on WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com and go Bobcats. The Binghamton University Bearcats are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Find your Bearcats every Tuesday during Bearcat time. Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time worldwide. You can get your student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the years telling their stories and what we like to call Bearcat time. The Binghamton University Bearcats with us Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, you can find all of our content by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and find our Binghamton playlist. You can also find the Bearcats on WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage and underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to BinghamtonBearcats.com and go Bearcats. And I do want to make a note of this before I let you go. Black History Month is obviously an important time, but I'm going to take a note from Morgan Freeman where he said, I don't want a Black History Month because Black history is American history. African American history is American history. So when people look to me and they might say like, oh, it's Black History Month, Dan, why didn't you change your logo colors? Why didn't you put something up? It's because in my world, regardless of color, background, nationality, religion, money, and so on and so forth, I treat people the same. So I would love to go to that point because I know representation is important, but Herm, you don't hear me say, what's it like being a black coach? What's it like being an Asian coach? What's it like being a Hispanic? You don't hear those words come out of my mouth because I don't think that people should be treated in I think it's a form of continued racism. So I don't look at Black History Month. I don't look at a select group of time. I know representation for all cultures are important, but I want to say to you and to your history, not as a black man, but as a human being, as you reflect on your history, what has it been like to represent your family, your heritage, and where you came from in Northern Philadelphia to be where you are today?
Well, first of all, thanks for telling me about your knowledge of it, but you have those points of view because you are what I would consider a worldly person, but everybody is not like Dan. So therefore, we as a country, as a world, as a nation have to continue to hopefully try to educate everybody to speak eloquently like you just did about history. But you're exactly right. I don't look at myself as a person who was put on this earth to be pigeonholed in a certain spot. I look at myself as a person who, if given and provided the opportunities like everyone else, I'm going to slam that door down and do the best that I can possibly do and be the best person that I can possibly be. And I know that my two parents are up in the high heavens, looking down on me, being appreciative of everything that I stand for and what I've done for our family name. Those things are important to us. As I was growing up in North Philadelphia. There were many friends of mine who didn't have an opportunity to make it. And a lot of those people left this earth at an early age. So for me, the key was the stability of our family coupled with education. And those are the things that enabled me to get out of North Philadelphia and to be here sitting in Syracuse, getting paid for something like watching sporting events. Think about that. That's that means you've really you've reached the fullest. And one of the things that I say every day after leaving this office is, what did I do today to make a difference in the lives of the young people that I serve here at this institution? That's what I live for.
And living for that at this institution of Syracuse, you said if you got an opportunity, you're going to slam the door on it. So I want you to slam the door to have the final word in this conversation on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside the Great Lakes Honda City Studios. We have seen coaches come in these last few years, a decision to bring back Felicia Leggett-Jack, which, by the way, I called to simply retire it. They're recruiting her. So I want to make known that I saw that coming. I saw her coming home. So I'm happy she's home. Happy to obviously have the relationship I've had with Adrian of over a decade, to have the relationship I've had early on with Fran Brown. And I got to talk with Felicia when she was down in Binghamton for a game on the road this year. And we got to stand in the tunnel, and I finally got to tell her to her face what I appreciate about her being at Syracuse. So as we look at this moment for Syracuse University, there's constant construction. We're seeing this Lally complex come together. We've seen what's happened with Manley Fieldhouse and it becoming what it is today, the Ensley Center. We have Jim Brown, Ernie Davis outside, Floyd Little outside as well. We obviously have our coaches right in front of the Ensley Center. We're seeing this movement, the NIL conversation. Where is Syracuse today on the precipice of the new era of NCAA athletics? Herm Frazier, where is Syracuse?
Syracuse is right there, being as competitive as it can possibly be, being a pillar in this community for educational opportunities, as well as providing entertainment with our sporting teams, and doing the best that we can to provide just wonderful opportunities for young people who want to come here and excel in our athletics department.
Herman Frazier, Syracuse University, Senior Deputy Athletics Director. Herm, as always, I can put any title there, Arizona State, Hawaii, UAB, Syracuse. It doesn't matter to me. An Olympian, a gold medalist, but more than anything else, someone who has been a friend. And you know what? There's a lot of people that walk into a room, and when they get some success, they go Hollywood. There's a lot of people that walk into a room and they see everybody as competition. There's a lot of people that walk into the room and they just live by themselves. I don't think you've ever come into a room that I've seen you in, that we've seen each other and locked eyes, where we don't shake hands, bump fists, and say hello. So to the friend, Herm Frazier, thank you for how you treat me. Thank you for coming to my hometown and working to make a difference. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do next.
Okay. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Appreciate you.